Oh, hello, this is Tak Chung from Walk with Tak. Welcome to my YouTube channel. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share. In this video, I would like to address what I call it the salmon dilemma. I think this beautiful sunrise that I experienced the other day really set the mood for today's video. This beautiful orange-red color reminds so much of the beautiful color of the flesh of the salmon. Okay, so let us talk a little bit about this salmon dilemma, and I will show you how I solve it. If you are a salmon lover, I think you probably would face a similar dilemma as I have. And my wife and I love salmon, and we would like to have salmon about 2 to 3 times a week. However, salmons are expensive, and at $10 a pound, it is more expensive than most other type of meats that we normally have. So the first challenge is how to economize the salmon for each meal. For example, spend $5 rather than $10 for the meal. For example, cook 8 ounces of salmon rather than 16 ounces. So the question is it enough for both of us to share 8 ounces of salmon? And when you take the 8 ounces salmon and cut it into 4-ounce portion and put it on the plate, and it really doesn't seem like to be very much at all for the meal. And the second consideration of this salmon dilemma is how to cook them. There are many ways to cook salmon, and each have their advantages as well as disadvantages. One of the most common way to cook salmon is to bake them in the oven. The advantage of baking them in the oven is that once you have it set up and put it in the oven, you can let it cook by itself. And however, this is time consuming, and usually the skin of the salmon is not properly cooked. The second option is to cook salmon on the grill. One advantage of grilling is that you can cook the skin of the salmon, make it char, and give it a great flavor. However, the disadvantage of grilling is that you need to pay close attention to what you are doing, otherwise the salmon might turn out to be dry. And grilling also takes time. The third option in cooking the salmon is to cook them in a frying pan on top of the stove. The advantage of this method is simplicity. However, the disadvantage is that you need to pay close attention to what is going on. And it has a tendency to cook the salmon unevenly, depending on the thickness of the salmon. The goal of my fast cooking system is to make home cooking practical, efficient, creative, and fun. So I want to able to cook salmon both intuitively and spontaneously anytime I want. So I developed a set of criteria for my salmon template. First of all, I want to be able to cook a small portion of salmon, but it is sufficient enough that when we have it for a meal, we feel satisfied. This means that I need to develop a method to able to cook salmon with other food ingredients, particularly vegetables. And I want to use my fast cooking system, which is with flavor chasing, advanced prepping, stir frying, and template-based cooking. I'm able to cook salmon with a vegetable medley. I want to have the flexibility and diversity allow me to create many different versions to go with the salmon. And of course, efficiency is the key. I would like to be able to cook a salmon dinner with a vegetable medley in less than 15 minutes. So in the following, I would like to discuss with you a salmon template that I have developed that will allow me to achieve this criteria. So to allow us to have salmon meal twice a week, I would buy salmon portions which usually weighs about 1 pound. You can buy this kind of salmon portion from many supermarkets. We purchase ours from the Aldi supermarket. These salmons are fresh and have never been frozen. All the packages has an expiration date on it, so I always look for the one has the longest expiration date from the day that I purchased them. Most of the time, we will use half of them on the day of our purchase, and then we will use the other half in the next 2 to 3 days. I usually prep the salmon as soon as I bring them back from the grocery store. I cut them up into small strips. Usually, they are large enough that it will maintain their flavor when I cook them, but small enough that I can cook them rapidly. I store them in plastic containers in the refrigerator so they are ready for me anytime when I want to use them. The salmon that I purchase always have skin on it, and the best way to cut through the skin is use a ceramic knife. A ceramic knife does an excellent job in cut through the skin cleanly. Usually from 8 ounces of salmon, I will get about 5 to 6 pieces out of it. Here is a salmon dish with a vegetable medley that I cook for our dinner. The vegetable medley contains 5 different vegetables. Start out with eggplant, yellow squash, zucchini, mushroom, and tomatoes. I cook the salmon in my Cuisina 14-inch stainless steel wok. I basically use the wok as a small frying pan. And there's a reason for me to cook the salmon in the wok, mainly because right after I cook the salmon, I'm going to cook the vegetable dish in the wok as well. I'm going to use my spot seasoning method to season the wok in creating a non-stick cooked surface. This will prevent the salmon from sticking to the surface of wok during the cooking process. I place individual pieces of the salmon with the skin side down on the surface of the wok. For my kitchen stove, I left the heat on the highest setting. And with high heat, I will be able to char the salmon skin. There is a thick layer of fat under the skin of the salmon, and it is difficult to drive out the oil and cause the skin to char. But once you char the skin, it creates excellent flavor. I'm going to cook the salmon in this position for about 60 seconds to a minute. How long you're going to cook it would depend on the heat capacity of your stove. If your stove can generate a lot of heat, it might take shorter time. Otherwise, it might take a little bit longer. If you watch the salmon, you can see the salmon is being cooked from below and gradually spread upward. During the early stage of cooking the salmon, the skin of the salmon might stick to the bottom of the wok. However, once it is cooked to a certain degree, the salmon will be freely moved from the surface of the wok. When you check the salmon, if it feels like it's being stuck, don't try to move it, because this way you will tear off the skin. Here is a good example. When the salmon is ready, you can use a pair of tongs that will easily allow you to move the salmon. And now you can turn the salmon around. If you look at the skin of the salmon, it is charred but not burned. There's a distinct difference between the two, because when it is charred, the flavor is excellent, but when it is burned, the salmon's skin is going to taste bitter. The reason that you can accelerate the cooking of the salmon, because now you can lay the salmon on the side or turn it over to cook other parts of the salmon. Each side of the salmon probably takes only about 10 to 15 seconds to cook, and then you can turn it around and to cook the other sides. By carefully control how you cook them, the salmon pieces can turn out to be tender and juicy inside. Using this method, both my wife and I agree that this is probably the best cooked salmon that we have ever had. Furthermore, you have full control in cooking individual pieces. The pieces that are thin and small, you can cook them with less amount of time. While the pieces that are thicker, you can cook them longer. This method for cooking salmon is practical, efficient, and fast. Furthermore, you can produce the best tasting salmon. Furthermore, the charring of the salmon skin provides truly a flavorful culinary experience. In fact, from our standpoint, we truly enjoy salmon cooked in this way. And because of the flavor that we can achieve, we never order salmon out in a restaurant anymore. Plenty of the oil that you see in the wok actually are released from the skin of the salmon. So we make the transition from frying the salmon to stir-fry a vegetable medley seamlessly. This is the reason why a wok has so many attractive aspects. The Cuisinart 14-inch stainless steel wok is particularly suitable for cooking this dish because it has a large flat bottom surface area. So I can initially use it as a small frying pan to fry the salmon, and then I switch it to function as a wok to cook the vegetables. After completing the vegetable medley, we combine it with the salmon that we cooked previously. Using this method, we do not season the salmon because the salmon will take on the flavor coming from the vegetable medley. We always cook the salmon the same way, but we will change the vegetable medley each time when we cook this dish. So consequently, you will never get bored from cooking the same dish. And when my friend Jimmy adopted this method to cook salmon for him and his wife, he has been able to create almost an infinite variations of different salmon dishes. So hopefully this video gives you some idea how to cook salmon in a practical, efficient, creative, and fun way. Okay, if you would like to learn more about my fast cooking system, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. So keep on cooking. I will see you tomorrow.